Welcome back to the shop. On this channel, you are going to find daily videos with tips, tricks, and techniques from an operational refinishing business. Inside these walls, we've restored thousands of pieces of furniture, some of the biggest names and brands in the industry, and we've worked on pieces in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of value, which we are really proud of inside this shop. So make sure to subscribe, click the button down below, and let's get to work. All right, the first thing I want to do this morning is I'm going to start sanding sealer on all the pieces that we got sprayed up last week. First thing is got everything kind of set up in here. I'm going to get my sanding sponge ready to go. And like I said, we sprayed a bunch of sealer on these last week, let them dry, and now we're just going to hit it with a little bit of 320 grit, get it all to kind of smooth out. Come back again with the light sanding sponge. And this is what's going to kind of polish it up, get it nice and smooth. I mean, with this many pieces of furniture, it is it's going to be a few hours of this project to get this all ready to go, but we're nowhere near completion yet. We still have to do touch-ups, we still have to tone it, get it back in the spray booth for more sealer, and then we got to sand it again just like this and get that last coat, top coat on, so we can get these back to the customer later this week. A lot of you have asked how I got into this business, and a lot of it comes down to high school wood shop. That's what I was like the wood shop prodigy growing up in my junior, senior year of high school. And I wanted to come out here and kind of get your opinion. What are your thoughts on adding these like wood shop, metal shop, auto back to high schools? Let me know down in the comments below. Like, I truly am an advocate for that, and I really want to use this channel and grow the word of woodworking. You don't need to refinish furniture. You could do a lot of things with your hands and make a good living. And I want to teach that to high schoolers of today. It's it's the reason I got into it, but I was shamed a little bit at that point for not going to college. I knew I wanted to get into construction in some way, either furniture, cabinetry, building houses even. Like, I really enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. So it's like I just don't see why it's a bad thing. Most people, we're busy. We're a busy shop. Everyone I know that does furniture refinishing is busy as well. They all, are in need of employees and workers. So it's like, I'm going to use this channel to help push that narrative and start getting these back into, get them into high schools again, or even just, ROP kind of things. They can learn the trade. And kind of the reason why we started in this business, the last year of getting on social media, I want to start teaching how to restore furniture, refinish furniture. And you could use this skill with a lot of other, businesses. You could refinish furniture, you could build furniture, then finish it. You could do flooring refinishing, front doors, gates, garage doors, inside cabinetry. Like I said, the possibilities really are endless. I had the really great idea one year is just closing the shop up and becoming a in-home touch-up specialist. You just go around, repair furniture for people one day at a time, and charge each customer, just say you charge $100 an hour. You can make $800 a day going house to house and just doing furniture for people. So you can make a pretty good living doing this, but you really have to just be dedicated to, want to get into it, want to learn, build that confidence in your woodworking skills. So what piece we're working on right now is this drawer front for like about a $25,000 dining or a desk, I believe. It's rosewood. It's a really pretty piece of furniture. We're going to get some new glass cut for it here soon because it had some damage. It was purchased in auction, and a lot of times these auctions don't really show you the true character of the piece. 9 times out of 10, they come in more beat up than what the pictures show you. A little deceiving. But that's why they've come to us. They find us to restore it, bring it back to life. Then they can put them back in their stores and showrooms and get them sold and get them to the person who ultimately will have it in their home. This is the last drawer for this piece. But we have a whole row, probably 30, 40 pieces that we have to get sanded with sealer. This is going to take a few hours, and I don't want to bore you with that. Stay tuned. We're going to come back and you know, when this is all done, we'll knock this out this morning and then get on to the next project. Okay, we got all the sealer sanded. We'll go back to touching that up maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. But I want to get this desk taken apart. This is the one that got damaged, you know, from an owner of the piece. It got damaged. We're gonna just do some repairs, some touch-ups. But I wanted to show you something really interesting on these drawers that not a lot of people see. I remember this from when we did the work on it maybe a year or two ago. But underneath the drawers, let me see if I'll pull it out. Underneath the drawers, it has these 3 little marks here, 1, 2, 3. They have it on the corresponding drawer. So this is the 3rd drawer. Number 2 has 2 marks. Number 1 has 1 mark. Really cool little thing from the factory. Then we don't have to actually number it or label it. It already has it inside. So really interesting little piece. We're gonna pull these all out because luckily these really didn't get damaged. So all we'll probably do is sand them lightly, put a coat of sealer on them, and then just make sure we spray a top coat so all the sheens match. This might have been wiped clean. This might be a little shinier than what it was originally. So I want to just make sure we're on the right page across the entire piece. Once that's good, I'm going to get up here, remove these legs. This whole desk is going to come apart in about 5 pieces. First is the legs. Get these out. And I remember I replaced the screws on these because the ones on them here were flatheads and they were all stripped out and busted. And let me see. I don't remember if I labeled this one here. Doesn't look like it. So I'll just get a little Sharpie. I'll mark it with an X and mark it with an X. And that way we know this leg goes here, so we match the holes up once we put this back together again. This is an old desk as well. So it has these really cool, I call them screws. I don't really know what the technical name is for these guys, but they have, you know, little holes across it. It's not for a screwdriver. I use a nice like ice pick or an awl and come in here and just, you know, just to loosen it up a little bit. See, it's a pretty long screw. So that, and then same with the opposing side. These guys here are actually connecting these to give it some strength. And then inside there's about 7 or 10 screws inside here to remove the box. We'll do that next. So let's see. I remember it has dowels. I think there are dowels inside of here, or there's screws coming across. So let me go around on this side. Turn the flashlight on. Now my guess is they are dowels. I don't see any screws coming across. So what we'll do is we'll remove these screws on the inside. That one's nothing, that's a dowel. Go around the back. Still smells fresh inside of here. Okay, so we got all the screws out, and I did a little pre-test. There's dowels holding it on, and then we're actually going to pull it up and pull it out at the same time. So we're going to go up and over, just like that. I don't need to label these because I know there's only a left and a right. There's no guessing on this one. So we know that this can only go on this side and this one only can go here. So we have 6 more screws on this guy, and then we can get the rest of this apart. But first, let's take this off. So now you can see how far we tear furniture down to get it back to be, you know, fully restored. This piece in here, we stained inside of these areas like we do on every project. Everything looks good, even though these are areas that are never going to be seen. We still want to make them, you know, look top notch, especially for a piece of this value. The biggest reason, the biggest problem with this restoration was that, if you want to come in a little bit closer, it's a little bit dusty, is that this top is going to have to get stripped down. Just the top section will probably stop it around this curvature, but somebody was using like a mouse or something on this, ate right through the finish over the last year. Just no mouse pad, no protection at all, and there's just scratch marks across the entire top of the surface. So it'll just be easier to strip this back to raw wood Everything else here is just going to get sanded lightly. We're going to fix some chips in the little corners, clean it with wax wash, get them back in the spray booth. That's the easier part of the job. This is going to be the more invasive one. We'll get back to that desk in a minute. Ivan was just about done with this tabletop, so I want to get it finished sanded and ready to stain, so it gives it some time to dry before we put it back in the spray booth. So right now we're at that final sanding stage where I go around and kind of check, make sure that there's no other imperfections on the piece, any dents or anything that Ivan's may have missed. It's always good to have another set of eyes to inspect your work, because you've been staring at it for hours. Your eyes may miss certain little things where somebody new can come in, take a look at it and tell you, oh, hey, you missed this, this, and this. They may have never seen it. And it goes both ways. Ivan will do that to me sometimes. He'll do a piece of like, hey, you missed one of these pieces or a little dent. Like sometimes it's just, like I said, your eyes get a little tired of staring at the same piece of furniture for hours. So it's good to just get a second opinion. I'm just going around checking because we had a lot of damage on these edges when it came in. So I'm kind of giving it that last little checkup. I think I even put a little bit of epoxy, so I'm trying to find where that epoxy is. All right, the last side, and I think, let me see, wrong side, I found it the wrong way. It's this side. This is the last side, and this I think is the one that Ivan had a few little dents that he found right at the end. Put a little bit of my epoxy in there. Now I can kind of go through and just lightly sand everything. Get it down. And as you can see, when other people refinish pieces and the things you buy in auction, you never know what you're going to get. We haven't really done anything to this minus the stripping and the sanding. There was already a large dent here, and it was filled before, and a little bit of like past veneer right on this edge. Somebody damaged it, tried to fill it, and probably sanded it pretty heavily years ago. Because I said it had some sort of varnish or polyurethane on it, which was not factory finish, from what these pieces had. Usually they were a lacquer. So we saw that. Obviously it makes sense. This is the side that was the most damaged, and this is the side that has the little past piece of veneer that we're gonna have to touch up later in the process. All right, I think that's good. So now it's time to stand up, get on your feet again, and we're gonna hit the top side. What we're gonna do, same block, kind of long strokes, long passes. And what this is gonna do is gonna help you with any of the little swirl marks. The oscillating sanders that we use, which are called like just the quarter sheet, we use Makita. That's the one we like the best. They also create little micro vibrating like swirls, but the worst are the orbitals. Even if they're random or dual action, we'll still see swirl marks in pieces from that. Maybe it's the grit that these people are using, but no matter what sander you're using, if you hand sand when you're done, it's gonna get all those swirl marks out. It's gonna get you a nice, basically smooth surface, and it'll have a clarity to it, unlike any other finish that you've seen before. You're gonna start seeing the character of the wood start popping out as this grit gets a little bit higher. Right now we're still just using the 150 grit. So we're gonna go through this, and then we'll come back with the 220 and then hit it with a sponge. Okay, we're just finishing up with the 220 now. And already here you could start seeing a little bit more clarity in the wood, but the secret weapon is the sanding sponge. These ones here that we use really start softening up that, like the texture of that grain, and start bringing out that character. You can start seeing the clarity is what I call it of the wood. Where here, which hasn't been sponged yet, you could see like it's just a little bit blotchier. I don't know what the right word is for it, but that's what's going to cause your blotchy finish is the texture in the wood like that. By using the sanding sponge, it's going to just kind of polish up the wood is what we say here. It's going to polish it up. But that just means it's just taken off the little fibers that are left over after the 220. This grit here is probably a 220 to a 280 grit, somewhere in that region. As they wear down, they get down to maybe like a 320. But the thing is, it's all hand sanding. You know, just, it takes time, it's repetitive, it's kind of boring. Put on a good podcast, put an audio book on, and just get going with it. Because ultimately, this is what's going to set your refinishing apart from anyone else. Doing this last little step is what's going to change the look of your piece. You know, we're going to hit it probably 2 or 3 times back and forth, get it nice and clean. We'll blow it off, and then we'll show you the finale on it before it goes and gets stain on it. Okay, I'm going to grab the air hose and blow it off one more time. Then I'm going to have you kind of come in. And you can come in and see the clarity of the wood here. You know, if you could touch this in person, you'd feel how smooth this is. But you could see all the grain. It's not diffused by any, you know, swirls or any like wood fibers. You just start seeing the real beauty of the wood, which is going to make it easier when we do the staining. Obviously, it'll make it a little easier when we spray it as well, because it's going to be really smooth. We don't have to give that sanding of sealer like we did this morning. We don't have to do that as heavily if the piece starts out really smooth like it is right now. So I said, we're going to let this sit for a second, grab lunch, and then come back and we'll get this guy stained. As you can see, there are some pieces already ready, you know, from that desk, sanded, prepped. But let me show you how I did it. I have the doors all set up. We're using a little bit of 320 and a sponge, or first off, felt block with the 320. I'm just going through and sanding it like sealer, like we normally do with all pieces, because for the most part, this guy is in pretty good shape, minus some of these edges where the chairs were banging into it. So what I'm doing is I'm just lightly going through, using that sealer. We're going to kind of said, knock it down first. The back sides of the doors are all in pretty good shape. It really is right on these edges that's seen the abuse. See right here too, like you can see like there's some oil or fingerprints, or you know, who knows what. Could be food, some grime from touching some greasy food. But what we're going to do now, kind of bring it up top, and now this is where you really do need to inspect as you're sanding, because now we're looking for the problems. Use your other hand to check it, make sure there's no roughness to it, because right here you can see where the color is missing, but it's right on this edge and it's already rounded over, which is really nice because this has a little bit of a radius to it. We can go through and just lightly sand this with the block, get that smooth, the sealer nice and smooth. This one I don't think is going to need to have filler. By the time we'll put a little bit of stain on it, we'll put it in the booth, we'll seal it, and then come back and do our touch-ups and blend it in. It's going to go away. Luckily, it's such a dark color too. I believe it was a different cut of rosewood, that we can get away with a little bit more you know, of these types of damages, because we can hide it with touch-ups. It's the darker the color, the easier it is for you to blend it in. Anything light, maple, natural oak, those are really hard to touch up. Color-wise, it's just it's a bear to do. I have another touch-up I'm going to show you when we're done with this desk that came in on Friday. Has a few chips, and we're going to do a few little spot repairs on it as well. But it's a lighter kind of wood. It looks like it's just like a reclaimed oak. It's going to be a little harder to blend in and touch up. So like that will be fun. Okay, we just about got this. I'm going to do the same process on the other door and then the 2 boxes that we removed. This will take us a little bit of time to really dial in. I may have to use a little bit of epoxy on some of those boxes. So if I do, stay tuned. I'm going to put that in the one of the next scenes if we actually need it. We might be able to get away with sanding on most of them, but I will let you know. All right, now we have the table all set up. I pulled the gallon of stain back out again, and we're going to get it mixed up real well, so that way we can get a coat of stain on the bottom of this. We'll let that dry for a few minutes and then come back, flip it over, and do the top side. That way it'll dry for a couple hours, and maybe by this afternoon we can get the first coat of sealer on it and come back tomorrow and sand the sealer just like we've been doing all day. So first, I'm going to throw my mask on because the odor of this one gets a little strong. And then I'm just going to carefully just start in one corner. Let's just start working my way down, down the piece of furniture. Okay, now that we let that side dry for a few minutes, I'm going to just carefully pick it up, flip it over, and now we can do the top side. Once again, the stain's been sitting here for a few minutes, so stir it up again, just so anything that settles works its way back up to the top. Gives you a uniform color. And then at this point, what I normally will do is I'm going to hit the edges first. I like doing the perimeter. Kind of work my way around. This is going to get us, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to do the top. So that way we don't have to come back and then accidentally hit the top with stain and cause a little bit of a mess. Just like that. We'll kind of just go around it one more time. I'm going to let the stain sit on this for a little bit longer, so that way it gets good coverage and it starts darkening just a shade. Once I'm done getting, being dizzy, I'll get back and I'll stain the top. Did you know you could learn all of these tricks and techniques directly from me? I have a private refinishing community where inside I answer all of your questions, any techniques, any help that you need on a project. I'm directly involved with answering every single question on that. And inside, when you sign up for $15 a month, you get access to the first 14, it'll be soon the first 20 chapters of my Refinishing Guide book course, where you can go through chapter by chapter and learn directly from me and the book that I wrote. So that way, you can start learning all these tricks and techniques, from my 21 years of experience now. We just realized the other day that I started working part-time in February, at the end of February, for the guy who trained me. This was February of 2004. I think I started right after, I played soccer in high school. Right after soccer season, I started working part-time in the afternoons at a refinishing shop. So now I said, and then at the end of March will be 15 years I've been in this shop by myself. So it's like I said, a couple anniversaries coming up. 21 anniversary of doing this and 15 years of being here in Garden Grove. So you see we're almost done. We're not wiping it off. You notice I'm not drying it with the other rag. I'm just carefully applying it like a brush or a sponge. We're going to let it kind of sit up, and this is why it's important to go straight with the grain. So if you start going all over the place, you're not going to get an even color. A little bit more. And we'll kind of go around, work our way back, and just make sure we hit all of the pores and make sure everything is nice and even. Most of the time we do not stain teak. We'll clean it with acetone and then we'll put it in the spray booth for sealer. But with this one, it's going to have to match the rosewood and the mahogany that are the other pieces that go with this set. So I'm trying to give it a little bit more color right off the bat. Give me a little bit more to work with before I go in the spray booth, and I'll spray the stain or toner, whatever you want to call it, inside the booth to get me to that perfect color that ties it all in. And you see I'm kind of just working my way back slowly. Just going to check on the edges as well. I'll make sure that we have no drips along the sides. That will ruin your finish as well. If there's any drips, it'll look horrible. Take my dry rag now. I'll kind of hit around the outside. Let this sit up for just a second. See a couple little dry spots that I missed. Kind of want to have it nice and even, one solid even tone. And then I'll just carefully, lightly with the other rag, just take it and wipe it dry. I'm not putting any pressure, but this is just gonna take off any excess off the surface. We'll let this dry for an hour or so. We'll put it underneath the fan and get it to flash off really quick. And we can get it in the spray booth for some sealer today. Okay, I told you I would show you how I'm going to put epoxy on this when I got to that point, and I was right. Like, it mainly was the two cabinets. I did a test run on the first cabinet, really wasn't too bad. This one here had more damage than the other, but what we're doing right now is mixing up the epoxy, getting it really worked in, get it nice and flexible, malleable, whatever you want to call it. And right here you can see where these pretty large dents are. Now, this doesn't look great because the color is all missing, but it's all smooth. There's no dents here. Right here is where we're going to try to fill. So I'm going to take that with a razor blade, and what you're going to do is work it real carefully. You really want to use these razor blades versus a putty knife because you can kind of score it off real smooth, and we don't actually have to do a lot of sanding when we're done. A little trick there. So now you can see with the contrast, you can see how much repairs. So there's actually a few little ones right here on this edge. Another one right there. And so what I'm looking for is all of those imperfections. I'll spin this around a little bit, and you can see all up here has these same exact spots. So we're going to just put a little bit of filler. These will all get touched up and repaired after we get sealer on them. And obviously work carefully with the razor blade. You don't want to cut yourself. But I said and then it's really good to clean it off every so often. Come back, get fresh, fresh epoxy. Work our way around. I said this is where they were really dinging into it with the chair. So I think I just about got this. So kind of do the feel test. Use your finger. If you could feel it with your glove on, then you know it's a big enough piece of damage. Here's one right here. Probably never going to see it. That was probably already there. But I'm going to go around. I think there were 2 or 3 on the front. Yeah, right here on this front edge. I'm going to put a little bit there as well. So now you can see kind of that good contrast of how big these dents were. One little one right here. I said, make sure to make epoxy make as much as you need. Right now, I'm just about done, and I have a lot left over, which kind of defeats the purpose. It wastes money. These putty sticks are not the cheapest, so try to mix up what you need so you don't waste money for your business, because it comes out of your bottom line. I'm going to let this dry up for a little while. I'm going to jump on one more project real quick and show you how to do some repairs, and then we'll get out of here for the day. Last piece that I want to get ready today is this little coffee table that came in last week for just a quick repair. As you can see, I don't know what they did. It almost looks like staple gun, like pinholes, but something happened to it, damaged it, I think upon install. So what I'm going to do first, I noticed some of the little fibers are loose. So I'm going to take a little bit of my super glue and just let it drip into these spots, so that way I know we're actually securing any of those little fibers back to the back to the wood. You see, as they soak them up, you can start seeing the color change. Use your rag again with wax wash. Wipe it clean. I said, I don't know what they did to it. This one here still needs a little bit more. There you go. I see the fibers. Those look good now. We'll do just a quick activator on it. I'm going to let that dry. And then now I just got to make up the epoxy to try to get me in that color of the the family of that. It's a very unique tone. I'm not sure it truly shows through in the camera, but it's a kind of a off greenish brown tone, kind of a natural with just a touch of what you would call like distressed colors, a little bit of those greens and grays undertones. But what I'm trying to do is get a color definitely lighter than the piece, because it's easier to touch up if it's lighter, but I'm also trying to get it in that family. So I'm going to just take a little bit of this brown. And that's the beauty about these Mohawk epoxy sticks, is that you can mix all the different colors together to get that perfect color. Since you're this far in the video, what I'm going to do for you, give you a promo code. If you go to woodrepairproducts.com, use the promo code MORE5 off with the number 5, you're going to save 5% off your order from their website. You could use it in person, like in store, or buy it online. And I said these epoxy sticks work wonders. They sell a dozen different colors. They're really one of the biggest stores with Mohawk products. So now we're starting to get close. We're not the same color by any means, but we're in that same undertone. That little bit of brown turned it from like a peachy color to now a kind of a raw umbery tone. It's got a little bit of texture and color to it. So I'm going to spin around this side. I'm going to come around me on this side, Ivan. There we go. And let's see. Since I'm right-handed, this will make it easier here. I'm going to take the putty, get it into place here just carefully. I'm just trying to fill the small areas. I'm not trying to spread it around and get in all these extra little pores. I'm trying to keep the repairs as small as possible. This will be the biggest one. This is going to be the hardest one for sure. But it almost looks like maybe something like in a crate, like some staples were sitting next to this in transport, and the staples were bouncing back and forth and hitting the surface. Because it does not look good. Whatever happened here. It's repairable. We could fix it. But what I want to do is just, I said, carefully work my way around. Kind of wipe off a little bit of the excess with my putty knife first. There's a little spot right here on top as well. I'm going to just put a little bit of epoxy on here. I'm trying to keep these repairs as small as possible. See a little low spot right here in that middle one that I was telling you about. These epoxy sticks are harder to work with at first. So if you're used to using Bondo or just wood filler, these are definitely harder to work with. They take a little bit more practice, a little bit more technique. But once you figure it out after a few weeks of using them, these will save you so many hours of headaches. There we go. Let's see. It's a great start right there. I'm going to grab a rag, a little bit of wax wash again. This is a little trick we learned only a few years ago. Kind of wipe the rag with your wax wash over these areas. What this is doing is taking any of this little bit off the surface, making it so that way you don't have to sand it next in the process. Looks like the only one I might have to sand is this large one right here. Everything else, so I know right there we go. I can tell that there was some epoxy there that didn't need to be there. I'm going to let that dry overnight, come back, then we could do some spot repairs tomorrow on it. Okay, we didn't get everything done that we wanted to today. My goal was to get all of this plus this little cabinet. But we started the day off with a little bit of a funk. I didn't really want to get going this morning. I sat and did some paperwork, got organized, then I was ready to go. So we'll come back tomorrow. We'll get working on this one along with everything else you see behind me. We'll get it all back in the spray booth and touched up. Once again, I'm glad that you're here. We'll keep teaching you. We'll keep spreading the word of this refinishing page, and we'll see you guys here tomorrow.